get things kicked off. And then as always, I'm going to hand things over to Vito, but I see plenty, I think, new names that we haven't seen before. So I just want to give a warm welcome to anybody who is new to the Fraudcast. Welcome in. This is a weekly session that Vito and I host for anybody that has a role in fraud management, across the board, but particularly like in the e-commerce space. We get together weekly to talk with all of you guys around what you guys are seeing in terms of trends, what you're working on, what you can get assistance with. If you have any questions, this is a really great place for you to come in and bring your questions, especially with us, with the holidays right around the corner. I'm sure everybody's like heads down in preparation. If you guys have any questions that you would like to get feedback from, we could act as sounding boards. You get plenty of great advice from other professionals such as yourselves on what you're working on and what you're seeing. Please be on camera with us if you can. If you're not able to, that's totally fine. But we love seeing everybody's faces. It makes it feel like, we're actually talking to each other. We're all together. So would love it if you could be on camera. If you can't, that's totally fine. Please introduce yourself in the chat so we know who is in the room and who we're talking to. Whether you have joined us before or you are new, it's always great to know, have some familiar people know who we're talking to throughout the session. So please introduce yourself. And just a heads up, we do record these sessions so that we could share them with folks who are unable to make it during this time with us. We know schedules are tough, so we share those recordings out with folks after the session. But yes, feel free to participate throughout if you're new. This is not a regular webinar. This is intended to be a conversation. You can feel to interject and ask questions throughout the entire thing. And if you want, you could also throw things in the chat. We will keep an eye on the chat and we'll make sure to address whatever you throw in there. And with that being said, I'm going to hand things over to Vito.
What is up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. It's so good to see you. My gosh, I don't even know where to begin. Diane, what are you doing with that shirt? Okay, I'm a Mets fan, but we got a fellow masochist on board here. East side, west side. Everybody's coming down to meet the Mets of New York Town. Thank you for drowning out the Dodgers hatred from Justin. No, we love it. We love it. We're all simpatico here. I'm so excited to see all y'all, even if you're not into the baseball game. We got a lot of people from Idaho today here, Ryan. Deja, how you doing? It's so great to meet you, Deja. Ryan, I don't know if there's like a secret, like a Jeep driver handshake that Idahoans have. I don't even know if that's the collective noun there, but hello, y'all. Hello for everyone who's not in Idaho. What's going on? Jenna laid it out brilliantly. You know the deal. If it's your first time here, welcome. Welcome to the crew. Welcome to the family. You've got a lot of stuff to talk about today, and I'm sure all of you have a lot to share. So please just know one thing about this little group, this little time we have together. I've got thick skin. Okay, so just come off mute. No raising hands. This ain't no formal classroom deal here. I've got a lot to show you, though, about what's going on across the broader network that I'm looking at. I want to give you some cheat codes to get ahead of something that promises to kind of erode your profits come Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So I'm going to jump into it. But like I said before, stop me at any time. Just jump on in, and here we go, y'all. Let's fire up the old Deckaroonie. How do I do this? You think I'd know? It's been like 90 fraudcasts by now. Okay, I click this button. I do. Speak among yourselves as I load this sucker up. All right. So, and by the way, if anyone's going to be in Texas tonight, in Dallas-Fort Worth, I'm going to be at the ballpark in Arlington. And we're going to be watching some baseball. Diane, I'm going to be watching our boy DeGrom pitch, probably a gym with the wrong uniform on. Heartache. But enough about baseball. Let's talk about Southeast Asia. Probably a lot of Mets fans there too, or worldwide, y'all. Okay? Every year around this time, we see a huge spike in fraud originating from Southeast Asia. I am defining Southeast Asia as this handful of countries right here. And I've given you the handy code that's used in things like Country 2 ISO. I don't know if you're familiar. It sounds like a John Gruden play. Country 2 ISO, Z banana, Y break. Okay. Country 2 ISO is how we see, it's like the codification for credit card countries, et cetera. It's the standard. I won't get into the weeds about it. But when I set up my filtration, when I set up the way in which I pull data out of the network, I use this schema to define Southeast Asia. I'm looking at IPGeo, true IPGeo, which allows me to see through proxy IPs, through VPNs. I've got a lot of cool toys here, but maybe you do too, okay? Bin country, which we've all got, that's that country 2 ISO I was telling you about. The country code in which these things are being delivered, because believe it or not, a lot of these fraudsters attempt to just ship things over to Singapore or Brunei or Myanmar, Burma, wherever. Same thing with billing code. Believe it or not, a lot of them are actually using Southeast Asian billing codes along with their credit cards to do what they do best. Here's what I'm seeing. Okay, spike up and to the right, a lot. Boom. This fall off, this drop off starting September 1st is to be expected because these are chargebacks, and y'all are professionals. Y'all been in this game long enough to know that the window on chargebacks, we're talking 30, 60, 90, even 120 days. So this last month is really yet to hit, but it's going up and to the right, which means we're back in the saddle again where we are every year. And why is this important? And why is this important in like the context of Black Friday, Cyber Monday? Y'all know better than me that when Black Friday, Cyber Monday rolls around, just like any sale period, but a sale period on steroids, you're going to be seeing a lot of good traffic, a lot of good volume come in that is probably going to minimize what we would see as a spike on a normal day. We hate that conversation that comes, around St. Patty's Day or Valentine's Day even, where it's like, yo, what did you let come through during November? And you're like, I was looking at my dashboards and everything looked hunky-dory and everyone was celebrating, popping bottles, like it was going. This is how we like zoom in on that little thing comparatively. It's comparative to the spike little, but in reality, it could, it does turn out to be a pretty big thing. So it's spiking. You see that. Where is it coming from? I am your journalist. I'm on the front lines. Let's talk the who, what, when, where, why, and how here. This is my IP map. And as you can see, lo and behold, it's coming from everywhere. Okay. IP wise, if we were to just kind of try to wrangle this into like an IP geo, doesn't really work. You could see a lot of traffic coming out of Southeast Asia, right? But a lot more is coming out of EMEA, even parts of LATAM, North America, because a lot of proxies are being used. Let's talk about what those proxies are, which ISPs to be on the lookout for. As you can see, a lot of the ISPs are coming straight out of Southeast Asia. Here's your list. Get your Command-Shift-4 screenshot and ready if you're on that Mac tip like I am. This is going to be recorded, so you'll have this in the future. But these ISPs are really hitting hard. I'm going to butcher these pronunciations. Bear with me. We could AI these in. The Vietel Group, which sounds like, some sort of real mischievous bunch there. The Vietel Group, Viet Server, the Vietel Corporation, Mobifone, all of these things kind of coming out of Southeast Asia. But you see a lot of Cloudflare, ZenLayer, other types of VPNs. Okay, so that's one thing to be on the lookout for. The other is this email convention, which strikes me as odd because it is so flagrant. It is so obvious. Name.number.surname.year at outlook.com. Y'all know why they're doing that. Okay. This is to really score well in terms of like, cardholder name matching the email handle name. Any of like the 1.0, 2.0 features that typically live in fraud decisioning tools, this is how they like get around that or try to score well, get brownie points for it. A lot of these emails, believe it or not, are quite aged across like the larger internet. Like they've been around for a while. They probably spun these up a long time ago, or they've compromised some of them. Maybe they've compromised a bunch of these and now they spin up new ones to look like them. But otherwise, this is kind of what they're playing with from a signal perspective. From a super specific signal perspective, I thought I nailed that one. From a super specific signal perspective, This is the sort of browser fingerprinting they're using, which strikes you as odd in a way, right? Because we've got browser computer, so someone using an actual computer, with the majority of operating systems showing as Linux. What does that mean in our world? Bot, 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 bot. Like we got a little bit of bot traffic going on here, right? And really not the most sophisticated bot traffic. By the way, if you check out my newsletter at riskwithvito.substack.com, I'll throw it in the link eventually. I'm not looking for any money. It is free, but you can see I started calling this out a couple weeks ago, and I was getting like bombarded on LinkedIn by Vietnamese fraudsters. I think they know that I'm on to them. Maybe they're going to be coming for me. Stay tuned. But I was calling them out for like how egregious and obvious this bit was. But even though it's egregious and obvious, there are some weird things that could really threaten to hurt your Black Friday, Cyber Monday experience if you think you're going to go after this with some sort of like one size fits all fraud rule approach. And this might be part of the sabotage. This might be part of the style because they know if you start blocking them in this regard, you're going to see things go down. You know, you're going to see good buyers get turned away. You're going to see your false positives spike, and we don't want to do that. So here's a little more color into where they're shipping to, what these delivery addresses are like. When I look into fraud trends typically, and by the way, I'm talking a lot here. Just please come off mute and shut me up if something is really interesting to you. When I look at fraud trends typically, and I start to look at something as broad as delivery address and geos, the 99 out of 100 time kind of thing that happens is I see a breakdown basically related to population density. New York, California, Florida, like Texas, it just goes down like that. But this is pretty specific to Oregon and New Hampshire based delivery addresses. About half of the delivery addresses are targeting Oregon and New Hampshire. Stop me if you heard this one before. What do you think that means? What do you think what goes on in Oregon? Em, I see you smiling. I know you know what goes on in Oregon, right? Matthew, I know you know what goes on in Oregon, right? Well, let me throw you I was gonna say Justin Verlander curveball, but he's kind of like washed. I don't know. Let me throw you like a Clayton Kershaw curveball. There you go, Justin, that lefty hook. Okay. These are the top addresses being targeted in the great state of Oregon, which I just got back from a couple of weeks ago. Loved it. Okay. And if we zoom in to the top three, whoa, a little bit of a curveball, my friends. This supermarket here is like leading the league in fraud deliveries. Okay. Now, if I were to put my thinking cap on, which I rarely do, if I were to put my thinking cap on and I think about this supermarket, it's clearly, it's Asian related, right? There's clearly some import exporting deal that happens there, probably from Southeast Asian markets. So they probably have a pretty good logistical connection to Southeast Asia. So this is like an ersatz freight forwarding location right here. Don't block it straight out. We're going to talk about that in a second. For all of these, don't block any of these signals straight out. We're going to talk about that in a second. You do have this one in Hillsboro that it's behind the barbed wire. It looks kind of like a miniature freight forwarding operation. And then you have a church in Portland, which again has ties to the broader Asian community. So there's probably some sort of logistical connection there to people who would ship back and forth, and maybe I'm just going to send some things there to like jump onto the outbound package every now and then. Let's go to the great state of New Hampshire. This one really has a runaway kind of distribution at 2626 Brown Ave. You're the finest discount cigarettes in town. If y'all are looking for your pyramids, or maybe I'm trying to think discount cigarettes right here. We'll come back to that one. I had a checkered past of smoking cheap cigarettes, but those days are behind me. I'm a healthy boy now, okay? But when I look up this address on Facebook, lo and behold, won't try to pronounce this one. I feel like I'm going to get into hot water by trying to pronounce this one right here. But they're saying, hey, thank you for laughing at that, some of you. They're saying, hey, ship to this. This is where the warehouse is. It might be the discount cigarette warehouse, but it's also the warehouse for some sort of ersatz miniature cottage industry type freight forwarding operation. So that's going on. Vito, what the heck? Like, great. You're just trying to scare me on this balmy Wednesday afternoon. Cool. I got you covered, fam, because this is where I want us to think. Remember what Kelly taught us a couple weeks back? It's not a binary situation where it's like we're stopping all fraud or we're stopping like no fraud. We have to understand what our tolerance is, and we have to understand, to quote our friend Brian Davis, the broader user journey and where our biggest vulnerabilities are. So I took that whole schema, that filtering schema, and I made a little custom Looker field. I don't know how many you get to play around in Looker. I love it. But if you're not using Looker, you can do this in your own instance. I just added everything into here. I found a vintage, the first half of the year, where pretty much everything is earned out. And I could look back on like what was good and what was bad. And I put it into a fake kind of merchant profile to give us some, hypothetical fun numbers to play around with. I added one caveat to this one column here, which was buyer account age. Are these guest accounts? Did they just spin up an account? Is this an aged account with me, with the merchant? Lo and behold, I have a baseline of 384 bips of loss. That's a pretty high loss baseline bips wise, right? For those of you who aren't bips savvy, 100 bips is 1%. So almost 4% of the traffic that meets this criteria is fraudulent. That's pretty bad. Like, this is a pretty like hardcore group here that we really want to watch out for, but we don't want to shut it down completely. Why? There's plenty of good, believe it or not, that comes out of here. For this merchant in particular, out of about 2,000 orders that matched the criteria, only 88 of them came back with chargebacks. For about 2.3 million in GMV that came through the door, about 93,000 came back with fraud chargebacks. Do we want to cut off our nose to spite our face? Do we want to get rid of $2.3 million in profit to save 93? No. I don't know if I can't see the broader screen. I'm stuck on this one. But if our friend Robert is here, Robert would tell us, heck no, we want to get as much good profit as we can and leave the bad and figure out what we're going to do with that. So here's how we figure out what we're going to do with that. Just by looking at this, if I have a baseline of 384 bips of loss for this broader Southeast Asian contingent, I can see that we have less loss than baseline, believe it or not, at this 1 month old newly created buyer account. Okay. Even at guest checkout, we're pretty much on par with that 384 bip loss rate. But as I go up, I can see that these aged accounts where it's been aged for over 3 months and less than a year, that's at 17% fraud, 1,000, if I know numbers here, 1,702 bips of loss. Okay, Vito, great. This is all kind of bad. What do we do? Enhance, my friends. Enhance, my friends. Enhance, my friends. All I did is add one more column to this kind of investigation. This took me 5 minutes. Okay, I know you have all the free time on earth and your jobs aren't busy at all, right? Fraud is such an easy place to be in. There's no one's knocking down your door in this world. But if you're to take an hour doing this, imagine how many more columns you could add, because look what I found here just by adding one column. That column, again, the Brian Davis School of Thinking is, let's go after the user journey. Let's map the customer journey. Where does that begin and end? It begins in the order channel, whether they're on web, mobile app, whether they're calling in, whether they're using ChatGPT, whatever. So here we just have mobile app and web segmented next to buyer account age. Lo and behold, my friends, our low-hanging fruit reveals itself. At a baseline of 384 bips of loss for our Southeast Asian fraud contingent, I could see a 10x risk profile when I switch to mobile app and slightly aged accounts. That's 3,499 bips of loss. On an approval rate GMV of 66%, we're already declining a third of this traffic, okay? And it's still pretty dang lossy, okay? As I go down though, check out these pretty green pastures where I have no loss, okay? Web, over 1 year old. I am only approving 89% of traffic for web accounts that are over 1 year old and match this Southeast Asian fraud filtration schema. And I've got 0 bips loss. I could potentially approve more there. Okay. I could potentially approve more in web 1 month old, where I'm only approving 61.9% of traffic at 0 bips loss. Remember, this is not a binary deal here. We want to have some sort of risk tolerance, perhaps, for this risky population. We don't want to say goodbye to $2.3 million, right? So we don't want to block this outright, but maybe we can get a little tighter at the mobile app level where we've got 10x loss rate there. And maybe we can open up a little bit at web, especially really aged web accounts, or maybe newly created and they've got maybe a little CLTV about them. You can add, what I'm getting at is you can add so many other columns to this to really hone in. You have a very bespoke situation at your merchant. The way you do business is the way you do business. The way that you feel fraud pressure is the way that you feel fraud pressure. So you might look at something like customer lifetime value and say, I'm going to live and die by customer lifetime value. I love our loyal customers. So maybe I add that in as a column. I say, who's got more than, $2,000 lifetime spend? Who's done more than like 10 orders with us? Let me add that in as a column. And maybe I could see people who have low lifetime spend in a new account. That might really reveal itself as a big loss category. I invite you all to go down this path because I want you to avoid these like one size fits all rules that are going to, if I put a one size fit all rule just on this Southeast Asian filtration schema, I would be stopping $2.3 million of revenue to save less than $100,000 in fraud. That is not something that anyone's going to get behind. So my advice to you, remember the method, riskwithvito.substack.com. I've got it laid out in flow charts and all that fun stuff to help you out. I got videos on it. I'm here for you, But work with the data you've got. Maybe you don't have this like ability to see through the VPN and to see the real IP address. Cool. Substitute it with something you've got. Okay. Get to a point where you can make a table like that and compare loss rates on a granular signal-based level, one that follows the customer journey. Think customer journey. My favorite thing, I know our good friend Shelly could not make it today, but I'm always hyping the Susie School of Communications. Fraud findings fuel fact finding. Fraud findings fuel fact finding. So we just looked at that last slide and it showed us that the mobile app was like 10x the fraud risk. Hey, product team, check out these sweet donuts I've got here. Wouldn't you like some donuts? I like to pronounce them dog nuts, right? It's funny, okay? Weird. But hey, look at these donuts I've got, product team. Your mobile app, our mobile app. What's going on with some of this? Like, can we do something at the mobile app level to maybe get more information, suss out some of the bad stuff? Can I get more granular information passed from you about mobile app logins, mobile app transactions? Because when I look at these are really bad and we want to keep these people out, but we want to let people rock and roll on the mobile app as much as possible. Okay. Fraud findings fuel fact finding. Do not forget that. Okay. So top tips brought to you by our good friend, Chef Gordon Ramsay. He emailed me earlier, said he'd come, left me on the hook. What are you going to do? Control what you can. Okay. Remember, this is not a binary game. You're not going to stop all of this, nor do you want to. $2.3 million is not worth saying goodbye to just to stop 100,000. Even if people are breathing down your necks about that, show them the numbers. They can't argue with those numbers. So you're going to have to get a little crafty. When you're getting crafty, don't put some sort of one-size-fits-all rule in. Don't put 10 micro rules in. Try to really target that customer journey and use the method that you saw previously to define your low-hanging fruit, to define your 10x, 20x, 50x high-risk category and focus on that and turn those insights into action, right? I've got the insights. I've cross-threaded. That's what that emoji is supposed to connote, cross-threading. I've cross-threaded with my product team, talked about the vulnerability we have on the mobile app, maybe I could tailor a rule towards something that they illuminate for me out of the mobile app category. Maybe there's some data that I'm not getting past right now that I never thought to use, but they can pass it. And it's really showing me a great concentration between good and bad. Just food for thought. So turn those insights into action. Develop a risk appetite and not just a zero sum game, and watch out for those broad spanning rules. I've just bloviated a bunch, my friends, and I'm so happy to see you. There's a ton of you here. There's plenty of new faces, old faces. I want to hear what you think. There's 20 messages in the chat that I haven't even seen. I'm going to look at them while I sip on this fine agüita that I've got here. And please, I would love to hear from you. Talk amongst yourselves. Paula mentions in the chat, first.birthday.birthmonth.surname.birthyear. I saw this trend in banking about 5 to 10 years ago, and it was linked to ATOs on credit cards. There are some exclamation mark reactions to that. Let me put one in there too, because there you go. I stole your identity. I want to really try to be like you. So let me figure out what your birthday is. Let me put your name into these dots. And Outlook is all the cool kids are using Outlook. So why don't I just go that route? It's probably easy to spin up there. Ryan's with the bingo. Let's see what else we've got here. We suspect people that use the supermarket for product diversion. Absolutely, Ben. You know, the single family homes, Blaze, yes, plenty. And I'm glad you brought that up because I felt a little weird kind of just putting some, even though they're fraudsters and even though, we want to like hone in on them, I felt a little funky putting those single family homes there. So I might explain them as mule addresses, right? And there's plenty of those. What I really want to get to you is it is not the airport way stuff that you're also familiar with. It's not those like bona fide freight forwarding addresses. It's smaller operations. It's ersatz operations. That's my new favorite word, ersatz, right? It's the nail salons, the discount cigarette shops, the supermarkets. It's going there. How do y'all feel? Because I don't mistake silence for antipathy here on the Fraudcast. How do y'all feel about running something like that method? Don't be shy. Do you feel like you have the tools to do it? Or do you feel like, that's kind of like a heavy lift for me and my team? What do y'all think? Diane, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Doing great, thank you.
Now, a lot of what you're speaking of is way over my head, but that's all right. I aim to be taller. What we have discovered, don't throw away millions in sales to save 100,000. Got you. I take every single chargeback as a personal attack on my company. I am highly offended by it. When I do the math, it's less than 0.5% of our credit card business. We signed up with Signify just a couple months ago because we had bots attacking our website. The single family homes are very commonly used, and I don't think it's the homeowners. I don't think the people using those addresses occupy those addresses. They're either vacant or the residents, occupants are out for the day. They're at work. We recently had a dentist in Florida was targeted. His office was just a few blocks from his house. They were using his home address and they could sit outside and watch both. Oh, he's coming home for lunch. Scramble. Porch pirates, I'm guessing. But we've also had a lot shipping to Miami freight forwarders. A lot. So I agree. Don't give out the single family home address. It's the dentist's fault.
Well, you bring up a great point, and I want to add another caveat into this. For all of us who are intimately connected to the chargeback dispute process, when we look at our fulfillment information, especially from the carrier, we want to be hyper aware to see if there was some sort of change, some sort of buyer initiated change in delivery address, because sometimes we see the single family home targeted in our consoles, right? But then they contact the freight forwarder and say, oh, by the way, ship it here instead of there. Very common tactic. That feedback loop is traditionally brutal because we're not finding out about that change in fulfillment, change in delivery until either after the fact or way after the fact when that chargeback comes in and we do this kind of, rectifying. Have you seen any of that?
That is one of the red flags that our staff has been taught to watch for. It's a sense of urgency that's not warranted with our products. And it's the last minute, oh no, ship it to the Bronx. What? I've looked at those addresses. There's a whole crime network going on in a couple blocks of the Bronx and the Miami-Dade area. Very high frequency. Nothing in Oregon that I've seen. Nothing. But
Yeah.
Southeast Asia doesn't need our products.
They're listening. They're listening. They're all over my LinkedIn. They're all over my Substack. So let's hope not. I want to add another kind of thing into the repertoire. You've got your screwball, you got your curveball, you got your two-seam fastball. Here's your knuckleball. Okay, hotels, marinas. Okay, I uncovered a huge one about a year ago involving electronics, and I saw all of the chargebacks were going to hotels. I put on one of my mini caps. I don't even know what you would call this cap. And I called the hotel. I was like, hey, I messaged you a while back about like shipping this phone that I bought. I forgot. I told them I had back surgery and I was on some like heavy meds. I was like, yeah, I forgot what I told you, like where to ship it. They're like, oh, don't worry. Like we got your email, and the email had the new shipping label on it. We printed it out. We pasted it on the box for you. We do this all the time. I was like, okay, cool. Which address of mine? Because I'm a business person. I've got many addresses. They're like, it was this one. And that was the traditional freight forwarding facility. So the fraudsters are thinking, let me take advantage of hospitality. Let me use hospitality as a man in the middle. And I'm going to ship it to the hotel. And they do this all the time because so many people order stuff to a hotel, then they leave early, or they forgot their toothbrush and they've got to ship it out and da, 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 da. They do this. The hotels aren't even like remotely prepped for any sort of like discovery, nor should they be. They're a hospitality business. They want to do right by their customer, but they get taken advantage of in this way. So be on the lookout for that too. But remember, y'all, I tell you to be on the lookout for all these things. I've given you like 10 or 15 areas to look in. I'm not trying to inundate you with more work or whatever. If you remember one thing from this conversation, it's don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, as Diane was getting at, and find the lowest hanging fruit from a customer journey perspective and use that to inform whatever you've got going on. Use that to inform a new fraud layer defense. Diane, this might be because you've got the Met shirt on. I'm going to pick on you one more time, put you on the hot seat. It's more of a cool throne for you, especially with the Met shirt on. You said a little bit of this was over your head. I appreciate the humility there. What is it that can help you grow, as you were saying you'd like to grow? What is it that is like, this is Greek, what's going on?
Clearly, attending more of these broadcasts will educate me. But I get the chargebacks. I research the chargebacks. I deal with the sales department and the sales management to say, okay, here's what we want to watch for. Here's the common denominators. But this is all being done in a much more old school paper and pen way than the technology you're referring to. I have to go to my IT team, in fact, to find out if I'm even dealing with an international credit card versus domestic cards. I don't expect to get that much taller in this area, but this is helpful, seeing what other people are going through. I would have never suspected a lot going on in Oregon. But again, maybe because my products aren't attractive to that market.
I appreciate you saying that, and we will hide the fact that your products aren't hot there yet. My good friend Justin, I'm going to hype you real quick. We were talking about the Oprah effect. What happens when a big time influencer finds your product and puts it on the global market, and then you start to get a little because now some people have heard about the things, and it's like great. Marketing happy, product happy, C-suite happy. Me in my fraud chair, little like Popeye action there. That's not a good. There you go. That's more Popeye. So thank you so much, Diane. Y'all, there's so many of you, 37 of you. I'm blessed to have this kind of crew here. We're also like lucky to be together. I want to hear from some of you who maybe haven't thrown their hat in the mix. Caitlin, how you doing? What's going on? How you feeling?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. How do you feel about this? Is this something that you've wrapped your head around before? Is it something you feel like, dude, come on, this is easy peasy? How are you feeling?
I don't think any of it's easy, but I've learned a lot more than I previously did, and I thought it was very engaging. And you're so passionate, so I really appreciate that. I actually work for a company that does identity resolution. So some of my customers are retail based, and they use us for asset protection, loss prevention, to see who they're dealing with and better investigate that solution. So this is kind of resonating. I don't necessarily live within that exact fraud space, but this is something our tool can help with, and I find very interesting.
Well, I mean, now that you're on the hot seat slash cool throne here, what is that tool? We'd love to hear about it. And also, I would love to hear where things are at in terms of identity resolution. One of the things we talk about a lot is that as we advance, I'm not going to say agentic more than once here, y'all. I know you're tired of that word, but as we advance into that world that I just mentioned, the buyer is becoming more and more invisible. The identity that we're dealing with is going from zeros and ones to, like, I don't know, semaphore, dots and dashes, like whatever's less than zeros and ones. How's that going for you? Would just love to hear all about it. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Sure. First of all, I have to preface this. I'm not in sales, so I'm not trying to sell anyone or anything. Actually work with our customer base. So I do more the client success side and support them with the platform. Um, so I'd say it's going well, but it really can be challenging at times, and there's not a lot of information always available. So that's where we have a lot of strength in leveraging single data points as well, whether it's a credit card, an email, a username, location, and a name. So you can plug that in any combination, and we can help thread together that profile, and a lot of social media. So we can monitor this as well, but biographical information. And you can really start to better understand who you're dealing with. And is this a pool of associates? And how can you take that down, this ring of organized retail crime, et cetera?
I want us all to, like, piggyback on that real quick, like these rings, right? We talk about rings in asset protection as like in-store groups who come in, smash and grab. You've seen the videos, right? You've seen it all before. I believe, and I would love to hear what y'all think about this. And if you're silent, it's okay too. This is just the stuff that I think about as I lay my head to bed at night. In e-commerce, we are thinking about the checkout, the cart. We're thinking even maybe a little bit before that about authorizing a credit card. Maybe even before that about who's logging into an account or creating an account. I reckon for all 38 of you who are here, and it is such a point of pride to see that number and to see y'all here, and I tip my hat to you for even spending a minute with me. It means the world to me. I think all of us are about to enter into a world where that idea of the cart, of pre-auth, of even login is going to be drastically expanded to the perimeter, to the security perimeter. Who is accessing my URL? Who is clicking on my site? Because as we see a rise in web traffic, and as we know that with every new click on our website means another couple pennies or fractions of pennies for the server room, we know that server costs are going through the roof. We know that inorganic web traffic is going through the roof via web crawlers, bots, agents. I said I wouldn't say it again, but there it is. It's the last time, I promise you. Through all of that. So our companies are going to start saying, we want to know who's coming in at the perimeter. We want Caitlin's identity tool to like come in at the perimeter. We want to know who's logging on to our website before they even think about buying. Why? We want to personalize. We want to show them the stuff that they like. We might not have cookies on them, but we can develop some, right? So that's where I think we're all going, y'all. That's why I encourage you, the donut analogy again, with your chief information security officer, with your perimeter defense team, with your security engineers to break bread and to be like, what are you seeing? How are you feeling? What's going on with our server costs? Who's accessing our endpoints? Where are we being scraped? How are we being scraped? Is that going up recently? Because from there, we might be able to develop some sort of insight. And remember, fraud insights yield friendly conversation. I forget the alliterative kind of string I came up with earlier, but hey, you've got a lot of bot activity coming out of this region. You got a lot of bot activity that's tied to these accounts. Think about like the cheat code that is for y'all as fraud fighters. If you get that perimeter level kind of insight, it's like, dealing with, I live on the ranch here. You're dealing with mice a lot. If I'm stopping mice in the bathroom, that's one thing. But if I'm stopping them like, and the acreage outside, cool, they're never coming to the bathroom. Now you know my mice problem. But anyway, so moving on from the mice problem. Thank you, Caitlin, for sharing that. Thank you, Diane. We've got 2 more minutes. I want to give the floor to one of y'all, even whether it's about Southeast Asian fraud, whether it's about a win in your life, whether it's about like a cool food group that you've just tried out. I don't know. I know, Diane, I am oversharing. It's kind of like a problem I've got here. But floor is yours. Who wants the last word? Have at it, my friends. Do not be shy.
I suspect there is a shopping list on the dark web because the products, we sell 65,000 products. The same couple dozen are the ones constantly being targeted for fraud. So why is that? What's so attractive about them? They're available from other sources. Why are they coming after ours? Well, because we have the best price. Well, 0 is a really great price. Why is it always the same items again and again? And one of them, the most recent one, was a discontinued item from the manufacturer. They came to my site. Ooh, maybe she has stock left. And actually, we got it from the manufacturer because they held on to their discontinued item just for this customer who was not a customer.
Well, Diane, I want to put you in touch with our good friend Ryan McDonald, who I think might have boogied out of here. But Ryan is the dark web master and has helped all of us out, I think. So, Diane, you're going to see a message from me and you and Ryan. Anyone else who's interested in the dark web, reach out to me or Ryan or any of your friends here. Caitlin, I think you got some dark web info, don't you?
Well, I actually work with Ryan, so we were at the same company.
Scope Now. I love Scope Now. Clip that. I love Scope Now.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. We're happy to help anybody in need. Honestly, it's so fun for us. So we want to get the guys for you guys. So
Diane, Caitlin, Diane, all y'all, Ryan, all y'all, me, you, knowing you, to quote Abba. It has been such a pleasure to meet so many of you today. Such a pleasure to see so many familiar faces. Such a pleasure to see some friends who've been away for a while and come back. Justin Hicken, great to see you, my brother. This means the world to me. It truly does. I'm about to get on a plane and head out to Dallas Love Field to go watch the Rangers tonight. If you're in the area, hit me up on LinkedIn or whatever. I'll get you free tickets, y'all. Do it. But until next week, my friends, thank you so much for lighting up my world. I hope we gave you a little thing to run with. If you've got any questions about anything, you can always find me. I'm always here to help. Until next time, go forth and stop crime, my friends. Be great. I'm always here to help. Have a great one, y'all. Cheers.